Yes, ma'am.
संगीता मैम, विनय का फोन आया, उसके लैपटॉप में कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो रही है, तो आप नितिन सर को रिक्वेस्ट करके मुझे होस्ट बना दीजिए।
I'm doing it. Yes. अभी कर रही हूँ। We'll Professor Douglas with us. He's already joined.
To meet you all in this evening.
Thank you. Professor Amir is joining us from Bangladesh, from Chittagong University.
Yes.
Welcome, sir.
Hello, Dr. Sangita.
Hi, Charudat. Hi.
All the best.
I hope, thankful in this, and I hope you enjoy you like the inaugural session. It's a humble attempt, first, online attempt.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Priya.
I am Priyadarshini from Imphal.
From Imphal, she's joining us from Manipur, Professor Priyadarshini Gangte.
So how are you, my dear friend, Dr. Sangita?
Yeah, fine, thank you. We'll just begin in another 2 minutes, Priya. We're just waiting for others to join. Okay?
Take your time, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
MASAKO has joined us?
Yeah, she has joined.
Okay. I think we must begin now. If we begin now, sir.
Professor Annapurna, she joined?
She will be joining soon. She's just messaged me.
Okay. Yeah, what about Principal Ma'am? I think she also.
Principal Ma'am, I think she's joined or something. There's a little connectivity problem that is being faced. She will be joining.
Yeah. Namaskar. A very warm welcome to everyone. On behalf of the Gandhi Study Circle, Kalindi College.
Recording in progress.
Teaching political science at Kalindi College. Welcome you all to the inaugural program of the 2-day International E-Conference in collaboration with Indian Council for Cultural Relations, ICCR, on the theme Revisiting Gandhian Perspectives on Development, Reflection on Culture, Society, and Politics. It is great honor for Kalindi College that in this conference, we have eminent scholars and experts on Gandhi's philosophy from 8 countries, including India. We have representatives from Uganda, USA, China, South Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy and ideology on nonviolence is known across the world, which I am sure everyone would agree, continues to hold relevance. So in today's religious tolerance, truth, and justice, we present to you an inaugural interfaith prayer meet by the circle. This will set the tone for celebrating 75 years of India's independence as part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Now I invite Ms. Vasundhara Singh, a student of political science and student volunteer of the Gandhi Study Circle, to brief us about the interfaith prayer meet.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaste, everyone. We'll now be presenting before you an interfaith prayer or Sarvadharm Prarthana by students of Gandhi Study Circle, Kalindi College. The interfaith prayer reflects the essence of 6 major religions followed by the people in India, namely Hinduism, Sikhism, Buddhism, Jainism, Christianity, and Islam. The prayer includes Gita Pravachan, Shabad Kirtan of Sikhism, Quran Sharif, hymns from the Holy Bible, Jainism prayers, and Buddhist chantings, all with a message to be good, do good, and may God bless us all.
Pranam. I am Nivedita Basetia from BA program first year, and today I am going to recite Gayatri Mantra before you. Gayatri Mantra. It's considered to be the mother mantra of all the mantras, the most powerful Vedic mantra. Om Bhur Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Bhur Bhuvah Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Meaning, O Divine Mother, our hearts are loaded up with the darkness. Kindly make this darkness distant from us and advance the brightening inside us.
Shri Vaheguru Ji da Khalsa, Shri Vaheguru Ji di Fateh, Jo Bole Sonehal, Sat Sri Akal. Today I am Khushi Singh going to recite Gurbani from Guru Granth Sahib. Ek Onkar Satnam Karta Purakh Nirbhau Nirvay Akal Murat Ajuni Sevan Gur Prasad Jap Aad Sach Jugad Sach Hai Bhi Sach Nanak Hosi Bhi Sach. There is only one God, His name is true. He is the Creator, without fear, without hate, omnipresent, self-illuminating, mediate upon His name. He is the Creator. He is still true. Guru Nanak Dev Ji is still forever. Be true. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Sangita Dangme and I belong from the Rongmei tribe. I am from Dimapur, Nagaland, pursuing BA English Honors at Kalindi College. I'd like to begin with the prayer. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this beautiful day. We come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, love, and support as we begin this conference. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow as a group, and nurture the bonds of the community. Inspire us in our heart and conversation, and grant us humility to be discerning in our listening and attentive to the stirrings in our heart. In hope and faith, we trust in your guidance today. All this we pray through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, I'm Farin Saifi of BA Geography Honors first year will recite a verse of Quran, that is Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, who is most beneficent and merciful. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. Praise to Allah, Lord of the world, the most gracious, the most merciful, Master of the day of judgment. It is you we worship and you we call for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, not of those whom against there is anger, nor of those who are misguided. Sadaqallahul Aliyyul Azim.
Jai Jane. Today I am Skanjan and I, Archijan, are going to recite the Navkar mantra, the basic mantra of Jainism. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Shridhanam, Namo Ariyanam, Namo Vajayanam, Namo Loe Sabsamunam, Eso Panchamo Karo, Sarva Bhavre Panashano, Mangalam Che Savitise, Varnam Nave Mangalam. The meaning of Navkar mantra is, I bow down to all Arihants, I bow down to all Siddhas, the liberated soul, I bow down to all Acharyas, the spiritual masters, I bow down to all Upadhyas, the preceptors, I bow down to all saints in the world. The 5 kinds of bowing down I did through this mantra destroy all my sins.
Hello everyone, my name is Jiskitangmo and I'm from Leh, Ladakh, currently studying in Kalindi College, first year BA program with History plus Political Science as my course. So today I'm here to pray our Catholic prayer. So I'll start. Dikpachi Ammi Chirjin, Giva Punsun Sos Parjas, Rangi Senni Yosutul, Beni Sangyastan Vai. So now I'll explain this prayer to you all. Basically, this is a teaching of Lord Buddha in which he says that we are not supposed to do any kind of bad thing or sin which can harm other sentient beings. Indeed, we can do good things which can help others as much as we can, by which we can control our mind and we will be satisfied in what we have, through which our life will be happy and we will be happier. Thank you so much.
Hello. Thank you very much, Vasundhara, and all the students for the beautiful interfaith prayer that reflected our religious diversity. To make this event more memorable in a true sense of collaboration and to celebrate a lasting friendship, we have with us a very well-known ICCR Empaneled performing artist, Miss MASAKO Ono from Japan, to present the inaugural dance. Miss Ono is presenting an Odyssey dance performance based on goddess Matangini, who is another form of goddess Saraswati, goddess of knowledge and learning. Now I would like to invite Miss Ono to do the honor.
Namaskar. I am Masako Ono. First of all, I sincerely thank Gandhi Study Center, Kalindi College, University of Delhi to have invited me to the International E-Conference on Revisiting Gandhian Perspectives on Development, Reflection on Culture, Society and Politics in collaboration with the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, ICCR New Delhi. Thank you. As now I'm talking in front of the experts of Gandhiji, and many people here know the history and the philosophy of Gandhiji, so I'll not get too much into that part so deeply. I'd like to share Gandhiji's simple quote which inspires me. Recently, I came to realize my childhood trauma, which was created by my family background, like any of you might be having something of such. We all get affected by such young age circumstances, experiences. Of course, since I've had some problem in my life, and a good friend of mine advised me to look into my childhood situation. That's how I became more aware. After I've looked back deeply, there were some critical factor which was affecting my personality. Then I started to be very angry and had an irresistible anger inside me, and almost I was going to break down and break off a relationship with my family. Of course, I've resisted, but I've declared that I won't meet my family until next spring. Here is Gandhiji's quote: hate the sin, love the sinner. Yes, this quote speaks truth. In meditation, I try to remind me to detach myself from my thoughts, neither feelings. We all have to remember that we are part of the universe on earth. We are just the lights which shines beautifully in this universe. I think Gandhiji was very much aware of that fact and the truth. I'd like to share one dance item of Odissi dance on Goddess Matangi, the tantric side of Saraswati. This dance expressed the beautiful 16 years old voluptuous Matangi goddess who attracted Lord Shiva. Demonstration with the hand movements I would like to present. Oh, I meditate, O Matangi, who plays the shiny ruby jeweled veena. Is inebriated with the wine, charming in her sweet vocal expression of songs. Her delicate, soft limbs, lustrous like sapphires. Matangi, the daughter of sage Matanga, is four-handed, holds sugarcane and weapons. Her forehead, bedecked with crescent moon, has a fitting bodice adorning her. Walks with the swaying gait of elephant. Fulfills every desire of the devotees. Resides under the Kadamba tree. Listens to the sweet utterance of the parrot. O Mother Goddess, Matangiji, I meditate on you. I'd like to conclude my presentation with another quote by Gandhiji. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. Thank you.
Manju मनसा चंद्रकला अवतंसे उजोर्नते कुंकुमराग सोने पुंड्रेक्षु पाशांकुश पुष्पवाहस्ते पुष्पवाहस्ते नमस्ते जगदेक माता नमोस्ते जगदेक माता माता मोर तपस्या मातंगे मदशालिनी माता मोर मातंगे मदशालिनी कोटाख्येतु कल्याणी कोटाख्येतु कल्याणी कदम्ब वनवासिनी माता मोर तपस्या जय मातंगतनये जय नीलोत्पलद्युते जय संगीत रसिके जय लीला सुखप्रिये
She just went for over a half hour.
Thank you, Ms. Ono, for such a mesmerizing performance and beautiful words.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Ono. We apologize that Professor Naina Hasija, Principal Kalindi College, University of Delhi, could not join us due to some technical issues, network issues, but she has sent her welcome address message. On behalf of her, I'm going to read out that message. Good evening, everyone. Honorable Madam Lilian Tibatemwa, Supreme Court Judge, Uganda, our chief guest, Professor Alan Douglas, Professor Emeritus of Philosophy, University of Maine, USA, and today's keynote speaker, special guest, Dr. Sobhana Radhakrishna, who is an internationally renowned Gandhian scholar, STEM professor, Annapurna Pandey from University of California, and our distinguished guest, Shri Dinesh Patnaik, Director General, ICCR, and esteemed academic luminaries and participants. It is a proud privilege to welcome you all on behalf of Kalindi College, University of Delhi, to this international conference. I take this opportunity to congratulate the conference, ongoing committee of this very important international conference, organized in collaboration with the Indian Council for Cultural Relations to celebrate 75 years of India's independence, on revisiting Gandhian perspectives on development, reflections on culture, society, and politics. I welcome all the eminent speakers and guests representing 8 countries who have come here to share their knowledge and vast experience on Gandhi with the student community. The crux of this conference will be to meditate on the vision of creating an ideal society based on equity and justice through the implementations of development goals, while using Gandhian ideals to address the contemporary challenges. The August gathering today gives us occasions to move in that directions with renewed hope. I wish the conference a great success. Thank you. Thank you very much, Principal Ma'am, for this welcome address message. Today's occasion is to celebrate the spirit of freedom and friendship. In this pandemic-induced difficult times, what matters most is the human relationships. With this note, I would like to now invite Dr. Anuradha Kotial from the Department of Music and a member of the Gandhi Studies Circle, Kalindi College, to present a song to welcome our distinguished guests and the audience. Dr. Kotial.
कालिंदी के प्रांगण में आए किया बहुत उपकार, हे शुभ अतिथि स्वागत 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 बारंबार। हे शुभ अतिथि स्वागत 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 बारंबार। पाप धसा रे गरी सरि सा धस ध पद प ग प ध रे गरी सरि सा। पाप धसा श्रद्धा के है सुमन, श्रद्धा के है सुमन, भावना का है चंदन। स्वागत आप सभी का है, हार्दिक अभिनंदन। स्वागत आप सभी का है, हार्दिक अभिनंदन। हम सब मिलकर करते हैं आपको नमस्कार। हे शुभ अतिथि स्वागत 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 बारंबार। हे शुभ अतिथि स्वागत 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 बारंबार। स्वागत बारंबार, स्वागत बारंबार। धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Dr. Anuradha, for beautiful welcome song. I would now like to request our convener of the Gandhi Study Circle, Dr. Sangita Dhal, to say a few words on today's event. Dr. Dhal is an associate professor and UGC postdoctoral research awardee, teaching in the Department of Political Science at Kalindi College. Dr. Dhal was twice conferred Gandhi Award by University of Delhi for promoting Gandhian values among the youth and fraternity in different colleges and departments of Delhi University. I request Dr. Dhal to say a few words on today's event. Dr. Dhal.
Yeah. Am I audible, everyone?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manila. Good evening, respected colleagues and dear friends, and good morning to our distinguished guests who have joined us from US early morning. I really, I'm grateful to them. On behalf of Gandhi Study Circle, I welcome you all to the two-day International E-Conference, Revisiting Gandhian Perspectives on Development, Reflections on Culture, Society and Politics, which is organized in collaboration with Indian Council for Cultural Relations, ICCR, which represents a communion of cultures, engages in a creative dialogue with other nations. To facilitate interaction with world cultures, ICCR strives to promote and showcase India's diverse cultural mosaics. In fact, Anuradha's welcome song and Ms. Ono's welcome dance was a part of this inclusive culture which we are all talking of. While talking about culture and India's civilization values, the father of the Indian nation, Mahatma Gandhi, always figures at the center of public discourse. This could not have been a more opportune moment to revisit Gandhi and his philosophical traditions than the ongoing celebration of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which is, we are celebrating the 75th year of India's independence. Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy and ideals have attracted universal reverence in India and abroad. Kalindi College, Delhi University is one of the premier higher educational institutions in the national capital that has provided an engaging platform to promote Gandhian values and culture among the various students, faculty, and to kind of create a humanitarian spirit among them, every human being. The basic purpose of the society is to provide the intellectual and creative platform for our young students to popularize the Gandhian values of truth and nonviolence and to practice it in a way of life. We believe that Gandhi needs to be reinvented in order to celebrate him as a popular youth icon. And that has been our attempt in today's conference also. While keeping this tradition in mind, we are holding this two-day international conference representing 8 different countries to inaugurate our year-long celebrations to mark the 75 years of India's independence. While encapsulating the essence of the two-day e-conference, I'm happy to briefly outline the conference theme. Gandhi's ideas and values can be emulated in the process of development, where the critical stakeholders such as the government, people, and the civil society organizations can be aligned to adopt a more humane and inclusive approach to development. As a major objective of the nation states, development pursuits have generated more problems than solutions, thereby throwing challenges to the evolving alternate models of development. The vision of creating an ideal society based on equity and justice through the implementation of development goals is often confronted with variety of problems and challenges. There have been conflicts. In this kind of a situation, sustainable development cannot be realized in the atmosphere of conflict and violence, which is so very natural to a society, which is to a state which is marked by religious, cultural, and linguistic diversity. Therefore, if development goals are to be achieved, a peaceful, non-violent, and socio-cultural order has to be created, which includes removal of the social inequalities and ensuring people's participation in the development process. The debates on the issues of development has assumed a new dimension because of the global pandemic that has forced nations to revisit the policies and strategies that was adopted in the previous years. Alternative narratives have emerged to offer solutions to the existing problems and future challenges. In this context, the present conference, Revisiting Gandhian Perspectives of Development, aims to create a forum for academics, practitioners, students to deliberate on the Gandhi's model of inclusive development and highlight how it can be effective to mitigate the post-COVID challenges. The two-day conference will have 4 sessions. We are now having the inaugural session, which will be followed by 2 working sessions tomorrow in the morning, and the final validatory session in the evening, 6 to 8 p.m., which will provide an opportunity to create a platform for mutual exchange of ideas, perspectives, information, and knowledge of Gandhi's vision and philosophy. The sheer interest shown by our overseas resource persons in this conference is a glowing tribute and a testimony of Gandhi's continued relevance and popularity as a global icon, which will be highlighted by our paper presenters from Japan, from Korea, from Bangladesh, and from other countries. Conceived Gandhi as a way of thinking, the working themes we have selected for deliberation provide different dimensions of thought and action based on Gandhian's ideals and practiced in different parts of the world. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude on behalf of Kalindi College and Gandhi Study Circle members to our eminent resource persons, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and scholars, and my dear students who have joined the conference. I am confident that this conference, which is organized to celebrate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, will serve as a refreshing and academically engaging experience for all of us. I once again thank you all to have joined us for this conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dhal, for briefing about the conference. We are very delighted to have Professor Annapurna Devi Pandey with us today, who has kindly agreed to chair the inaugural session of this August gathering. Professor Pandey is professor in the Department of Anthropology, University of California, and a senior Fulbright US scholar, skilled in student development, critical thinking, science, teaching, writing, and adult education. Professor Pandey has demonstrated history of working in the higher education industry. She teaches cultural anthropology at the University of California Santa Cruz, and holds a PhD in sociology from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, and was a postdoctoral fellow in social anthropology at Cambridge. Her research interests are South Asian women's activism and leadership, the role of nonprofit organizations vis-a-vis state in women's social and political activism, economic and political empowerment of women in rural and tribal India, and women's identity making in the Uriya diaspora in California. She has authored numerous essays on Indian women's activism, agency, and entrepreneurship in the context of globalization. Currently, she is working on women's activism in mining in India, issues of immigration and Indian diaspora in the USA. Now, I welcome Professor Pandey to reflect on the conference and share her view on Gandhi.
Thank you so much for this generous introduction. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever we are, talking about this global wonderful conference. Thank you, the organizers, the esteemed audience, and of course, the scholars, resource persons who are part of this wonderful virtual gathering. I would like to thank Dr. Sangita Dhal and the team for organizing this conference. And this is the very, very opportune moment to celebrate not only just the 150th birth anniversary that's started in 2019 and continuing, and this Amrit Mahotsav, which is the kind of, the spotlight of India's wonderful contribution and showcasing the diversity that we all are so proud of. I would just start with, and of course, as Dr. Dhal mentioned, the beautiful song that was just sung just minutes before, and Miss Ono's dance, that what could be a more representative of diversity than what we just saw. And thank you again, Kalindi College and the team for organizing this fantastic program. To say a few words about Gandhi, I just would start with a quote that Gandhi said that if I am reborn, I would like to take birth either as a girl or a Harijan. Think about that kind of, the person who always thought kind of in the footsteps of others, especially the marginalized. So, since we are discussing and the focus is on revisiting Gandhian principles on development in the 21st century, I would just like to say a few words about how Gandhi has kind of, presented himself and how kind of, and his major contributions and what we can learn today that and what we can apply in our day-to-day life. The Time magazine in 1999 showcased Gandhi as man of the millennium. Nelson Mandela's tribute to Gandhi was published in the Time magazine titled The Sacred Warrior. Gandhi has been known as a prophet for nonviolence. And as we know, since we are going through this pandemic, the utter fear and the kind of, the conflict, violence, war, and all kinds of calamities that we are facing today, which we anthropologists call Anthropocene, that most of it is man-made if we are looking at it. But, and here, at this moment, here we are kind of, should spend a few minutes on Gandhi's principle on nonviolence. And then also that, because why should he be known and be so well known as the prophet? Just let's look at the great souls that India has produced. The Buddha, in the 6th century BC, Sankaracharya, in the 8th century AD, Ramanuj, 9th century, the great kind of, that we know, the Vaishnava saint. And if we just move to the medieval period, Kabir, Tukaram, Nanak, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shankar Dev in Assam, the great, great Bhakti saints. And let's move to the, British time. We can think about that Gandhi or Rabindranath Tagore emerged as the modern day prophets during British India. Since 2019, we have been celebrating Gandhi, and the most talked about, the greatest kind of, I would say, the personality, I haven't heard of anybody else. More than 600 biographies have been written on Gandhi. Some of them are worth mentioning. If we are not just looking at Gandhi as just the part of the calendar art, let's look at the biographies. Biography of Gandhi, the most notable biography is by his own grandson, Rajmohan Gandhi. And if we are looking at his childhood, Gandhi's Hindu and Jain upbringing, talk about diversity, talk about the inter-religious dialogue that Gandhi was brought up in. Lord Vikku Parekh's book on Gandhi. For Gandhi's moral philosophy, we can go to Raghuram Iyer. His son is a great writer. Many of you must be knowing Pico Iyer, of that kind of historical importance. Then we can see the Dame Judith Brown's book, her long introduction to Hind Swaraj, written in 1909. And the great psychologist, Erik Erikson's psychological insight on Gandhi, Gandhi's Truth, that came out in 1969. And Lloyd and Susan Rudolph's book on Gandhi, besides so many notable Indians who have written about Gandhi. Nirmal Kumar Bose, who had the privilege to spend 2 years with Gandhi in the Sabarmati Ashram, and he writes this very, very famous book, My Days with Gandhi, in 1956. And Krishna Kriplani's Gandhi, A Life, in 1968. Of course, Warrior Elwin's contributions. Ramachandra Guha brought out his book, Gandhi Before India, in 2013. I just would like to use a quote from Ramachandra Guha. In 2011, while delivering a lecture at the UN on the International Day of Nonviolence, historian Ramchandra Guha said that 63 years after his death, Gandhi matters for his pioneering of nonviolent techniques of protest and for his willingness to stake his life in the cause of religious peace and religious pluralism, among others. For these reasons or more, Gandhi matters still, Guha. In 1915, Rabindranath Tagore called Gandhi a Mahatma. So to revisit Gandhi's principles, Gandhi was very fond of saying that my life is my message. My life is my message. For an anthropologist, that is a very, very important statement. Since we study the lives of people, it's not to put Gandhi on the pedestal and make him a calendar god. Gandhi was a very, very ordinary human being. He was, while growing up, he was very timid, shy, not a very good student. And those of us who have not been good students, we should not lose hope that and he hardly spoke in class. He dropped out from college. His brother borrowed money to send him to London in 1889 to study law. He was already married to Kasturba at the age 12. She was 4 months older. His father, Karamchand, a Diwan of the Hindu Raja of Porbandar, was unlettered, and as was his grandfather. In London, he was really, truly, he was copying to be an English gentleman. I live in the diaspora. I have been living in the United States for the last 30 plus years. So I totally understand those of us who have moved out of our own country, how we are always in a dilemma. What should we what should be our best effort, whether to be one like the host country or like the country we have settled in, or maintain our own independent identity, transport our own culture, and or just kind of, that be kind of, which extreme or just in between. So there is always a kind of a dilemma that for the people who have moved out of their own homeland and settled in foreign countries. So for Gandhi, being a very young gentleman in his youth, that he wanted to be an English gentleman and learning to speak French, eating meat, learning to dance. But of course, he was not accepted by the other English gentlemen as their peer. So that really made a deep impact on him. And I would like to say one word that Gandhi has spent that his formative years, 21 years in South Africa after being in England, you could see that the foreign soils have made Gandhi who he became and made his contributions in India very, very remarkable and made him the father of the nation. So when I'm saying this, I want to tell you how Gandhi was influenced by the Western culture. So what did Gandhi do? That in London, it made him turn to the theosophists like Annie Besant and Madame Blavatsky, writers such as Edward Carpenter, Edward Maitland, Anna Kingsford, and through them, he came to learn the Bhagavad Gita. Imagine that through these English writers, he explored and discovered Bhagavad Gita. In Edwin Arnold's English translation, Gandhi used to say that his life was modeled on Gita. He read Edwin Arnold's The Light of Asia, a reading of the Buddha's life. Here Gandhi says from his autobiography, I found the light I needed. He also read about Prophet of Islam. In Carlyle's book, Heroes and Hero Worship, and at the same time, his vegetarian Christian friends introduced him to the Bible. Gandhi fell in love with the Sermon on the Mount. He said in his autobiography, a quote, my young mind tried to unify the teachings of the Gita, the Light of Asia, and the Sermon on the Mount. Quotation over. He discovered that renunciation was the highest form of religion and not indulgence in the pleasures as he had done before. So after spending 3 years in London on 11th June 1891, Gandhi came back to India. Didn't do very well in the High Court in Rajkot, where his family was. By that time, his mother had passed away. He was not getting anywhere, any case, and came to be known as a briefless barrister. He realized the British high-handedness when he was mistreated by a British political agent in Rajkot. That was even before he went to South Africa. He realized that the British behaved differently in the colonies than they did at their home in England. He accepted a proposal to go to South Africa to be an interpreter in a lawsuit against a Muslim firm of Kathiawar. Gandhi sailed for Durban in April 1893. He was 24 years old. He ended up spending 21 years in South Africa. He has documented that experience in his satyagraha in South Africa. And of course, if many of us, I think most of us have watched Richard Attenborough's film, Gandhi, which really showed different flickers or different reflections of his time in South Africa. He returned to India on 9th January 1915. Now is celebrated as the Prabhasi Divas. What he did in 33 years in India was a repeat of what he had learned and practiced in his 21 years in South Africa, 1893 to 1914. I will just focus on a few things that Gandhi has promoted and what we have to learn from this and how we are practicing this in our day-to-day life. First of all, self-reliance. Gandhi emphasized on, besides interreligious dialogue, what we just discussed, self-reliance. Gandhi believed in the value of work, that no work for Gandhi was small or inferior. So as we all know that he cleaned the latrine, he did all his own chores, and he never had any sort of inhibition for the work that is lower or higher. Gandhi emphasized that if his concept was the self-reliance from individual moves to the state. If every individual is self-reliant, the state becomes self-reliant. This notion of swatantra, that independence is tied to and definitely Swaraj, that is self-rule. So in that sense, he emphasized self-reliance. And one major focus was for Gandhi to turn to the village industry. That if we all know that focus on handloom, handicrafts that work with hand, we use the spinning wheel, focus on the villages, the village crafts. And today in the 21st century, as Dr. Dhal mentioned, that in the name of development, we may be moving away from the handloom and handicraft, and handloom and handicraft may be becoming just a kind of a token symbol of India's diversity. So I think at this point, we really need to think about how we can truly promote the village industry. Let me give you one example here. I have been working on a small project on the weavers, the artisans. I have started this small work, this kind of very small project in Odisha, and with a few like-minded people, we want to take it to all over India, and we are promoting the kind of the handicrafts and handloom of different states, starting with Odisha. What I have noticed in the last few years, visiting the weavers in different villages, we all must be aware that the weaving industry, that next to agriculture, that is the second largest revenue giving or revenue promoting industry, the second largest, and which has the second largest revenue. But at the same time, and by the way, 72% of the weavers in India are women. We may not be knowing, we may not be recognizing, they may remain faceless, but 72%. But I would say the statistics is little kind of is maybe incorrect. Rather, why? Because when I talk to the weavers, many women, even though they are the ones who are the producers, they do not bring up their own name. They would say, my husband is weaving. So you can say that it is 72%, that kind of, the number could be much more if we really take into account the number of women truly engaged in this work. So, but if we go to the villages, we see the weavers' villages have not improved. They still remain in a very, very dilapidated situation. So taking Gandhi's word, self-reliance, promoting village industry, and we have started a small project that may be a way to kind of relive Gandhi, that creating a global marketplace for the weavers without any middleman. So we are promoting that how every weaver can come to the global stage and can establish a connection with the global consumer and establish a one-on-one relationship. So I would say each one of us, our responsibility is to value our own handloom and handicraft and think about it, how we can maybe promote the gift giving the kind of the handloom, and at the same time wear handloom, what Gandhi had promoted. Let me go to the next point, that economic empowerment. which is tied to self-reliance, that economic empowerment of the downtrodden, including women. Gandhi promoted that the empowerment of women, the horizons, the marginalized, and and Gandhi was not against the machine. I think that is again another misunderstanding or misconception, that if we read his Hind Swaraj, he did not want machine to take over the human labor. So rather, a kind of establishing a complementarity between the machine and the human labor. So that's where I would say that how we can think about that, how Gandhi emphasized on the economic empowerment. When I see more and more women are now becoming entrepreneurs, and more that we see that the people at the bottom, the kind of the elites and other backward caste, that when we are promoting, when the kind of their education, economic empowerment, and that should be again the focus as part of our academic institutions. Again, a humble appeal. Now I want to move on to this, the kind of the third point that Gandhi emphasized, that fight for self-dignity, equality. This is a very, very value-loaded term. Okay, thank you. So I think we're running out of time. So, sorry? I should end, right?
No, ma'am, you go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So a fight for self-dignity and equality. Here, again, I want to give you another example that Gandhi was truly influenced by the international women's movement, especially the suffrage in England in the 1900s. And Gandhi used the suffrage movement as a model in fighting for India's independence and in his own life. For example, he saw how the women were practicing non-cooperation and organizing against social injustice, inequality on the streets of London for their own voting right. So what Gandhi kind of emphasized, that every person should be recognized and should attain one's self-dignity, because he knew that with the colonization, that how that colonization had promoted inferiorization of our mind. So in the name of promoting self-dignity, equality, then kind of the work is important. Here I find that he was truly engaged with the women and the marginalized. That's the point I want to emphasize. Today in the 21st century, that even if Gandhi is physically gone, I see in the villages of India, and my field work is in Odisha, I see in Odisha, a group has emerged called the Mahila Santi Sena, women peace warriors. And these women, they are not educated professionals. These women are from the villages, and they are wives, mothers, grandmothers, sisters, sister-in-laws. But these women, they have realized that by coming together against various injustices like domestic abuse in the village, or alcohol, that which is rampant in the villages, not because of their fault. It's a huge nexus. I don't want to go there. Maybe another discussion on that. So alcohol and child abuse and theft. So all sorts of kind of the social issues. This group has come up as Mahila Santi Sena. They take an oath to fight against social injustice, fight for social dignity and equality. And in the villages, they are promoting a kind of sense of sisterhood, coming up with entrepreneurship. For example, in Baleshwar, the huge kind the puffed rice industry has been just promoted by these women, and they are also helping the local police to fight against this sort of injustice and promoting self-dignity. So, and I have written about it, and I can discuss if there is a question answer. So, so talk about self-dignity and equality. So Gandhi's Swaraj, Swadeshi, Satyagraha, Ahimsa, and I just mentioned about the interreligious dialogue. If today, like Kalindi College has been promoting and you all are engaged, and if we take up some of these basic lessons in our life and promote it, practice it ourselves and promote it in our own circle and in our own interpersonal relationship, we definitely are kind of on the right path. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak a few words, and I am really looking forward to the papers presented today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Pandey. It was a pleasure listening to you. And I request all the participants to kindly refer to the chat box for the detailed bio brief of today's distinguished guests. And we have in our midst Professor Dr. Jaswinder Singh, Principal, SGTB Khalsa College, University of Delhi. Thank you, sir, for taking out your valuable time from your busy schedule to be with us in this inaugural session of the conference this evening. We welcome you, sir. Thank you, Professor. Moving ahead, our today's guest, Honorable His Excellency Ambassador, Mr. Dinesh Kumar Patnaik, Director General, ICCR, New Delhi, will not be able to join us due to some unavoidable circumstances. Currently, due to some work, he is out of the country. Mr. Patnaik has sent an apology message and best wishes for the success of the conference. He will be there in our valedictory session. Moving forward, it is a very special day for us, and we are honored to have among us one of the true Gandhians of our time and internationally acclaimed speaker on the philosophy of the Mahatma. We are fortunate that such a personality could be part of this special occasion to share her thoughts and ideas on the needs and relevance of Gandhian philosophy today. Presenting our very special guest, Dr. Sobhana Radhakrishna, who is the Chief Functionary of Gandhian Forum for Ethical Corporate Governance. Dr. Radhakrishna had chalked out a noble way of spreading Gandhian ideology by holding Gandhi Katha based on the popularity of the Indian oral tradition nationally and internationally. Brought up in Mahatma Gandhi Sevagram Ashram in Wardha, Dr. Radhakrishna has cultivated a strong ideological connect with Gandhi's ideals since childhood. She has established many organizations to work for Sarvodaya, Gram Swaraj, and constructive programs inspired by the vision of Mahatma Gandhi. She is the Chief Functionary of the Gandhian Forum for Ethical Corporate Governance for promoting ethical business practices and organizational integrity in public sector enterprises, and have given 278 talks in 39 major public sector enterprises in India. She has over 40 years of experience in social work in development projects in different parts of India. Her work for the development and welfare of the underprivileged communities has led her to dedicate her life to the cause of serving the people. As part of the 150 birth anniversary celebrations of Mahatma Gandhi from September 2018 to December 2020, she delivered 267 lectures and Gandhi Katha in 134 countries, facilitated by the Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Culture, Government of India. The national and international community honored her with several recognitions and awards. The Ministry of Rural Development, Government of India recognized her as eminent citizen from 2010 to 2013. On 30th January 2021, Indian embassies and high commissions in 75 countries had hosted their tribute by Dr. Radhakrishna to pay homage to Mahatma Gandhi on his 73rd
Martyrs Day. She is conducting online certificate courses on Gandhian philosophy hosted by the 78 Indian Mission as part of India's 75 celebrations supported by Indian Council of Cultural Relations and Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India from March 2021 to August 2022. Now I invite Dr. Radhakrishna to share her insightful thoughts with us.
Namaskar, and thank you for the warm welcome that you have extended. I would like to begin with a story of the ashram in Sevagram. In 1936, an American priest, Dr. Mote, had come to meet Gandhiji, and he had written down a list of 10 questions because Gandhiji had very little time, so he wanted the questions beforehand. And one of the questions was to explain Gandhiji's essence of life in 3 words, to which Gandhiji replied, renounce and rejoice. And that is the principle of trusteeship. That is the life and message of Mahatma Gandhi, and that is what is required for sustainable development. Gandhiji used to begin and end his days with prayers. These prayers were from all the religions of the world, Sarva Dharma Prarthana. So one particular shloka from the Ishopanishad used to be recited in the morning and evening prayer, and that is Isha Vasyamidam Sarvam Yat Kincha Jagatyan Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha Ma Grudha Kasya Swidhanam, that everything in this universe belongs to God. Nothing really belongs to us. Enjoy the objects of the world in an attitude of perfect non-attachment. Enjoy it with a feeling of sacrifice, taking to the extent that you need, and leave the rest for others in the society. Nothing really belongs to us. Even if we forget our Indian scriptures, the Ishopanishad is forgotten. The first shloka of the Ishopanishad, and that too the first verse, and the verse renounce and rejoice, or Tena Tyaktena Bhunjitha, will forever signify the essence of Indian civilization. And Gandhiji represented that essence of Indian civilization. I thank the Indian Council for Cultural Relations and the Gandhi Study Circle, Kalindi College, Delhi University, and for inviting me for this talk. It's an apt subject during the celebration of the 75th anniversary of India's independence, and I congratulate the organizers of this international conference. I convey my greetings to the esteemed speakers, scholars, resource persons, facilitators who are participating in the conference, and convey my best wishes to the students and other participants who will get an opportunity to participate in the deliberations over 2 days. Even after 7 decades that have gone by since Gandhiji passed on, in every part of the world, his resonance is felt as strongly as ever before, and his vision and actions are of an enduring significance for all times and places. Gandhiji is not merely a political philosopher. It is a message and philosophy of life. He is universally known as the most renowned theorist, philosopher, and the practitioner of truth, nonviolence, love, tolerance, freedom, and peace. He was the leader of his people. His mission was to reconstruct society from below upwards in a decentralized socio-political and economic order with villages as its base. He was very much concerned with the condition of the poor, deprived, and the downtrodden, and intended to alter the evil political, social, and economic system for the people in his vision of Gram Swaraj. The 21st century finds our world confronting new challenges no less apocalyptic than in the 20th century, despite the industrial, scientific, technological, and information revolutions. On the one hand, the world is witnessing the financial and economic collapse of regions that owed most to capitalist development. On the other hand, amazing transformations have radically changed the day-to-day lives in the world for better and in many respects for the worse. Looking back from the vantage point of the first decade of the 20th century, it seems nothing short of a miracle how in the first decades of the 20th century, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi launched his crusade against racialism, colonialism, religious fundamentalism, and violence. Let us not forget that Gandhiji's frail figure still looms large as the initiator of a new mass movement for justice and freedom. And there is a renewed appreciation of these methods, these actions, and relevance of Gandhiji's philosophy in the 21st century. Mahatma Gandhi's important contributions for a just world is very compelling and relevant to the world today. UN has designated the year 2021 as the International Year of Peace and Trust, and Gandhiji's pioneering work assumes even more importance. The Gandhian philosophy of ahimsa, satyagraha, sarvodaya, swaraj, and trusteeship are the foundational concepts for a just world that form the content of the notion of universality of human rights and influenced the UN Charter in 1945. Many of his ideas foreshadow the holistic thinking behind the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Gandhiji encouraged peace and non-violence, not just as a philosophy and a political strategy, but to accomplish social justice and bring about change. Due to the recent events in Afghanistan, the world is facing the unfolding consequences with a heavy heart and deep disquiet about what lies ahead, as an increasingly brutal conflict combined with an acute humanitarian situation and multiplying human rights abuses are increasing day by day. It is very essential that countries must urge all parties to exercise utmost restraint to protect lives and ensure that humanitarian needs are met. We express deep concern that the ongoing storm of atrocities is pushing the possibility of peace further away in the region. In a situation like this, we need to reflect that Mahatma Gandhi's struggle against political tyranny was based on two elements, which were always a part of whatever decisions and struggles he had carried: satyagraha, or path of truth and non-violence, and non-cooperation and civil disobedience from personal life to the political sphere. These are the standards of understanding Gandhiji's methods to deal with peace and resolve the conflicting situation. Today, because we are in the middle of the pandemic, I would like to say that the world is facing three kinds of crises globally. First is the COVID-19 pandemic, which is causing immense physical stress and sickness and fear of death or existential crisis. The second is the serious and long-drawn financial crisis, which is also causing physical and mental anguish. And the third is the ecological crisis, which is impacting everyone. We must look for answers somewhere within ourselves by learning from the life of Gandhiji, who had said, "My life is my message." The lesson the pandemic is teaching us is simple. When one member of the family falls sick, the entire family is affected. And soon the community is affected, the nation is affected, and then other communities in other nations in this globalized world. Our ancestors had already told us that we are Vishwamanava, world citizens, and this world is one family, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The well-being of one individual has an impact on people on the other side of the globe. That is true of every action of ours. The COVID-19 pandemic is also profoundly affecting peace and security across the globe. And it is imperative to use the world's collective influence to protect the millions of people affected by conflict and already facing acute vulnerabilities, as the health pandemic is fast becoming a protection crisis. The main challenge is to save lives today while buttressing the pillars of security for tomorrow. As existing grievances and susceptibilities become more entrenched, the potential for violence only grows, and there is an alarming spike in gender-based and domestic abuse. In some countries, fragile peace processes could be derailed if the international community is distracted. For example, in Sudan's Darfur region, the pandemic has led to repeated extensions of the deadline for completing the Juba peace process. Elsewhere, terrorist and violent extremist groups see the uncertainty created by the coronavirus as a tactical advantage. In Somalia, there is a risk that Al-Shabaab could increase attacks while security forces focus by necessity on the pandemic, and similar concerns are there for other countries in a conflict situation. We will have to learn to live with COVID-19 now and in the future as well. Instead of reinventing a new lifestyle, we just must get inspired from the life of Gandhiji to make the necessary changes in thoughts, actions, and conduct for coping up physically, mentally, and spiritually. And that is the future that the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic is pointing out to us if we observe carefully. Very few people know that as a couple, Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi had contributed immensely for public health emergencies from the beginning, even in South Africa, and there are many instances, but time is running out. But I would like to mention about one particular incident when they came back in 1915 to India, along with the ashram communities, and during the Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918, Gandhiji opened up his Sabarmati ashram as a quarantine center and treated and served patients through nature cure, provided simple vegetarian diet to boost immunity, and maintained physical distancing. Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi took care of the families of the patients. So Gandhiji was very sick and laid in the bed for 9 months. They looked after their physical, mental, and spiritual needs and gave correct information for being positive through prayers, meditation and chanting of Ramanama, and taking care of each other during the time of the Spanish flu pandemic. Gandhiji had said on November 10th, 1918, and I quote, "Our ancestors could build such tough bodies in the past, but today we are reduced to a state of miserable weakness and are easily infected by noxious germs moving about in the air. There is one and only one really effective way by which we can save ourselves from them, even in our present broken state of health. That way is the way of self-restraint or sanyam, or of imposing a limit on our acts." And there is for Gandhiji, the outside universe was but a reflection of the inside universe. He repeated time and again that the universe is compressed in the atom. There is not one law for the atom and another for the universe. It was based on his actual spiritual experience that gave him the conviction that the moral principles have no meaning unless they can be made to serve as the guide of conduct in the daily affairs of man. The Sanskrit proverb says, "Yatha pinde tatha brahmande." You are the universe within the universe. As with the self, so is the universe. What is going on within you is same as what is going on in the universe. From the mind-body perspective, Gandhiji's standpoint was, and I quote, "Health is an optimal integration of body, mind, spirit, soul, and environment. Environment is our extended body." Gandhiji's simplicity was not limited to his appearance and positions. He was attracted to the idea of minimalism and created a self-sustaining community in the ashrams that he had established for leading a life of self-control, voluntary poverty, bread labor, sarvodaya, and for living in harmony with nature. I'm happy to inform you that I was born in Gandhiji's last ashram in Sevagram in Wardha in Maharashtra. My father was inspired by Gandhiji since his childhood and joined the non-violent freedom struggle. My parents lived in the Sevagram ashram even after Gandhiji passed on in 1948. For more than 5 decades, my parents and all of us have continued to walk on the path that Gandhiji has shown to humanity. The ashrams were Gandhiji's model for community life. The essence of community life lies in sharing and caring. Life in the ashram was shared by all without the distinction of caste, religion, sex, or age. The ashramites cared for each other. Their care transcended bonds of blood and economic or other worldly interests. In the Sevagram ashram, the day used to begin at 4 a.m. as we set out for the Sarvadharma Prarthana or all religious prayers in the Prarthana Bhumi or the prayer ground situated next to the Bapu Kuti or the cottage where Gandhiji used to stay, and the evening prayer used to take place at 6 p.m. Though for the children like me, it was a fun activity, but it has made a strong imprint in my life. And even till today, I continue to practice everything that was practiced in the ashram. It gives me the internal strength and calmness. I learned to spin at the age of 5 and continue to do so till today. Gandhiji had called spinning as Sutra Yajna. So every day, the entire ashram community used to gather for half an hour for Sutra Yajna or sacrificial spinning. It also remained an important means for single-minded concentration and joining the thread with the poorest of the poor in the country. In my experience, spinning is the best means of practicing mindfulness, meditation, and positive thinking. Our family friend and the British Quaker, Sir Horace Alexander, who lived in both the ashrams in India, he observed and said that, and I quote, Gandhi had wonderful courtesy and punctuality. I was to learn quickly that he was the slave of watch. He had more to do in every 24 hours than almost any other man. So he had learned how to pack the most into every minute. Yet he never gave the impression of being hurried and impatient. Gandhiji thus is the role model of punctuality, promptness, and discipline. He has given 3 gifts to humanity, and that is, the first one, mostly people know about, is Satyagraha. The second, about which people know less, is about constructive programs, very important for sustainable development. And the third one, about which really people do not know, are the 11 observances or Ekadasha Vrata, which were a set of 11 rules for the ashram inmates for spiritual progress and voluntary self-control. Their relevance is much more to our times as much as it was during Gandhiji's time. Saint Vinoba Bhave, spiritual heir, had put these 11 vows in the form of a verse, which we recited in the morning and evening prayers. And they are Ahimsa Satyamasteya, Brahmacharya Asangraha, Sharira Shrama Aswad, Sarvatra Bhayavarjana, Sarva Dharma Samanatva, Swadeshi Sparsha Bhavana, Vinamra Vratanishta se Ye Ekadasha Sevya hai. The principle at the root of Ekadasha Vrata was to do unto others what you do unto yourself. Gandhiji had realized that vows gave inner strength to those who observed them. So in the ashram, the Gandhiji's ashrams were his ideals of a non-violent face-to-face society for Sarvodaya, the welfare of all, self-reliance, Swavalamban, service to humanity, Seva, and for realizing his vision of Gram Swaraj. The life and thoughts of Gandhiji are intertwined and inseparable. His politics was imbued with his spiritual experiments, and his spirituality was tempered by his vision of a non-violent society. His constructive programs were integral to his politics. The unique practices of Gandhiji, his control of the palate, his fasts, his spinning, his silence, and his prayers gave him the internal strength. They were as much a part of his politics as of his spiritual life. These practices and experiments were sustained and nurtured by the inhabitants of the ashrams that he had founded. The ashram community, through its own practices, affirmed, modified, and validated Gandhiji's ideals and practices and continues to do so even till today. This shows the relevance of his practices. He believed that moral degeneration is the root cause of all evils, including the conflicts. This explains his lifelong crusade of attainment of moral values such as truthfulness, non-violence, purity of means, love, self-control, respect, forgiveness, friendliness, compassion, mercy, etc. Gandhiji stands out as the champion not only of political democracy, but also of economic and spiritual democracy in today's world. So with this, I conclude my talk because I was given 15 minutes and I think I have exceeded that limit because it started late. I wish this conference all the best and convey my greetings to the fellow speakers who would be speaking on the subsequent days and later on. I thank the Gandhi Study Circle of Kalindi College for inviting me to give the inaugural address and take part in this conference. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Radhakrishna, for sharing your thoughts with us. It was a pleasure listening to you. We apologize our today's chief guest, Justice Professor Lilian Tibetemwa Ikiri Kubanza, Honorable Judge, Supreme Court of Uganda, Africa, will not be able to join us due to ill health. She has sent an apology message and also conveyed best wishes for the success of the conference. Moving forward, we are extremely fortunate and grateful to have among us as today's keynote speaker, Professor Alan Douglas, who has accepted our invitation to deliver the keynote address of our two-day conference. Professor Douglas is currently Professor Emeritus of Philosophy at the University of Maine and is editor and former president of Lexington Book Series of Studies in Comparative Philosophy and Religion. Professor Douglas served as Professor of Philosophy at the University of Maine from 1974 to 2020. He is an eminent scholar of Gandhian philosophy and edited 5 Gandhi-informed books, including The Philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi for the 21st Century, published in 2008, Mahatma Gandhi in 2011, Gandhi after 9/11, Creative Nonviolence and Sustainability in 2019. He has authored as many as 16 books and editor of 150 book chapters and scholarly journal articles. A peace and justice scholar activist, Professor Douglas has been active in the civil rights movement, the Vietnam anti-war movement, the anti-apartheid movement, and many other struggles resisting violence, war, class exploitation, imperialism, racial and gender oppression, and environmental destruction. He has been the recipient of Fulbright in 1963 to 64 and 2009 to 2010, and Smithsonian grants to India in 1992. The main Presidential Research and Creative Achievement Awards and the Distinguished Achieve Award and the Distinguished Main Professor Awards given to the outstanding professor in teaching, research, and service. Professor Douglas is going to Gandhi creatively contextualized alternative Gandhian perspectives and anti-Gandhian perspectives on development. Now I invite Professor Douglas to deliver the lecture. Professor Douglas.
Okay, is the audio working?
Yes, sir. Yes, it is working.
Okay, thank you. Namaskar, and thank you for the very kind introduction. I would like to thank the organizers of this two-day conference, the Gandhi Studies Circle of Kalindi College, University of Delhi, and the Indian Council for Cultural Relations, New Delhi. I would especially like to thank Dr. Sangita Dhal, who invited me and arranged for me to deliver the keynote address entitled Gandhi Creatively Contextualized, Alternative Gandhian Perspectives and Dominant Anti-Gandhian Perspectives on Development. This two-day conference has a most challenging and significant theme, revisiting Gandhian perspectives on development, reflections on culture, society, and politics. I'll attempt to offer my brief 20-minute keynote address in ways that are relevant to all of the excellent sessions tomorrow. It seems to me that what I'll present complements what has been presented in the inaugural session today, but perhaps also significantly differs from some of the approach to Gandhi and Gandhianism that others have presented. What does it mean to submit that an individual, economy, society, culture, religion, civilization, nation, or world expresses a high level of development? The dominant modern narrative provides economically and materialistically reductionistic, quantifiable responses. Development as progress and growth refers to such indicators as increasing the gross domestic product and increasing the per capita income. Development is measured by wealth, corporate capitalism, profit, commodification, and levels of consumption. The modern perspective of development is defined by economic, social, and political power and relational domination as expressed by capitalist, state, military, industrial, media, technological, educational, environmental values, systemic structures, and objectives. The modern approach dominates India, China, the West, and the world today. Greatly informed by M.K. Gandhi's critique of this modern perspective and his alternative constructive perspective on development, I maintain that this modern perspective is structurally exploitative, amoral and immoral, extremely violent, socially and culturally oppressive, alienating and dehumanizing, environmentally destructive, and unsustainable. In my approach, this expresses the radical critique of the modern perspective to development offered by the Buddha, Karl Marx, M.K. Gandhi, and other formative thinkers. Our challenge in this conference is to envision whether there are any perspectival, contextually significant values, theoretical constructions, and action-oriented, engaged, transformative practices that offer us real alternatives to the dominant modern view of development. Gandhi presents us with a radical critique of this modern Western perspective and a dialectically oppositional theory and practice. In understanding Gandhi-informed perspectives on development, we must avoid common, abstract, dogmatic,
stereotypical, decontextualized, essentialized, absolutist conceptions surprisingly shared by both Gandhi admirers and Gandhi critics. For such Gandhians, the too good for this world Mahatma has presented us with the pure, eternal, unchanging, absolute perspective on morality, truth, nonviolence, and the perfect blueprint for human and societal and spiritual development. But we ignore this in our modern and other false perspectives. Critics agree that Gandhi presents us with his absolute decontextualized blueprint, but this is a rigid, dogmatic, impractical perspective that is completely irrelevant and is even an obstacle when addressing our contemporary worldly values, principles, and practices related to contextualized issues of development in 2021 and in the future. In our dynamic, open-ended, contextually creative perspectives on development, we need alternatives to these common perspectives presented by some admirers as well as critics. As I have attempted to interpret in hundreds of pages, Gandhi certainly claims to experience and have faith in pure absolutes of nonviolence, truth, morality, religion, culture, politics, and development. These imperfectly experienced and constructed absolutes then serve as regulative ideals in how we experience and relate to undeveloped, contextualized modern values, theories, practices, and perspectives on development. What is most significant and is usually overlooked is that Gandhi devotes 90% of his writings, speeches, and practices to imperfect spatial, temporal, economic, historical, causal, conditioned, contextualized, relative truth and untruth, relative violence and nonviolence, relative development and relative undevelopment. His major focus is on how we can engage in our limited, contextualized knowledge, ethics, truth, nonviolence, and transformative practices, moving from values, relations, and structures of imperfect relative development to perspectives of greater relative development closer to the absolute ideals. Revisiting, the first word in the theme of this conference, is essential for examining Gandhian perspectival relevance in analyzing modern Gandhian and other theories of development today. In revisiting Gandhian perspectives on development, Gandhi is most significant but only if we creatively and selectively reread, reinterpret, and reapply Gandhi in engaged, open-ended, dynamic ways that are contextually relevant. The three words, culture, society, politics, in the conference theme are also essential for examining Gandhian perspectives on development. This emphasizes that Gandhian perspectives are organic and holistic, emphasizing the dynamic, interacting interconnectedness of multidimensional presuppositions, concepts, emotions, feelings, practices, relations, and structures in an open-ended, pluralistic, and inclusivist way, while avoiding fashionable, contemporary, facile relativism and subjectivism, I would broaden and deepen this theme. Complex, holistic, multidimensional, and self-critical Gandhian approaches to development may emphasize the physical, the bodily, the mental, the psychological, the linguistic, the economic, the social, the political, the cultural, the religious, the educational, and the environmental phenomena and variables in how we are essentially situated in this world and how we construct our perspectives, how all of these values and relations and structures mutually interact, and how they contextually express our relatively developed and relatively undeveloped perspectives on development. In terms of the theme of this conference on revisiting Gandhian perspectives on development, a selectively and creatively reformulated Gandhi serves as a radical gadfly, a revolutionary catalyst, challenging us and disrupting our normal views and practices regarding development. Gandhi claims that we should not worship the dominant power-imposed view of development. This modern view for Gandhiji expresses a low level of individual, social, economic, political, cultural, civilizational, environmental, moral, and spiritual development. What is Gandhi's radical alternative? His developmental paradigm shift, focusing on ethics, nonviolence, love and compassion, truth, egalitarian relations, real democracy, self-empowering decentralization, justice, limiting the modern ego while serving the needs of suffering others, and social, cultural, and economically and environmentally sustainable, harmonious relations. What does it mean to assert that we adopt such Gandhian perspectives on development? I'll conclude by proposing that selectively reformulating Gandhian perspectives on ethics, nonviolence, truth, class, caste, gender, race, and their integral relations with multifaceted development are insightful and necessary, but they are not completely self-sufficient. We can think of many socialist, feminist, anti-racist, anti-casteist, anti-neocolonial, environmental, and other non-Gandhian perspectives that may be more insightful and have more to contribute than Gandhi and Gandhians on key issues and struggles related to development. As with Gandhi and Gandhians, these other writers, activists, approaches, and perspectives need to be selectively reread, reinterpreted, and reapplied in contextually significant ways. I'll end by proposing that complex, holistic, multidimensional, and self-critical Gandhian approaches to development, when intersecting and reciprocally interacting with complementary non-Gandhian approaches, best expresses our transformative views, struggles, hopes, and realizations of flourishing human development in the contemporary world. So using my Gandhian sense of self-discipline and time, I see that it just turned 19 minutes of my allocated 20 minutes. So I'll end here, and I want to thank the organizers once again, and I want to wish all of the participants in this conference tomorrow all the best. Okay, take care.
Thank you very much, Professor Douglas, for your insightful deliberation. And you have touched upon the pragmatics and relevance of Gandhian philosophy that can open up possibilities in contemporary times. Thank you very much. I'm sure the audience have found it very refreshing to revisit Gandhi's philosophy on development as presented by you. It has been very enlightening and enriching session. Thank you very much, sir. Now, I request all participants to open their video camera for group photograph. I request all participants to open their video camera for group photograph, just so that we can keep with us as a memory.
I think the host has to open mine. If their host has...
Yes.
I can see Professor Nizam Ahmed from Chittagong University, Professor Hayashi from Japan, who have also joined us in the conference. We are happy with their benign presence. Thank you so much, sir.
Please, host, open the cameras of all the participants.
I think, Manila, we have to talk to Vinay. Vinay, if you are, Vinay, आप सभी का वीडियो ऑन कर लीजिए, एक ग्रुप फोटोग्राफ लेंगे हम सबका.
I am trying.
Yeah, Mamta, please.
I'm trying it. I can open
Madam, Professor Pandey, if you're there.
Yeah.
No, it says it is still, I'm unable to.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just see. Just a minute. I'll also try.
Okay, now I can.
Can you? Okay. Yeah.
you.
I can see many of our department colleagues. Welcome.
Yes.
Yeah. Charudatta, if you are there, Mamta. Charudatta is our resource person for tomorrow. Yeah. Kapil, have you taken the group photograph?
Yes.
I think you have to take 2 or 3 of all the participants, because nearly we had 104 at one point of time, but now
yeah,
session is getting over. So
extremely
I
happy
think that's,
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
I invite all participants to join our other sessions tomorrow. And the details are already on the college websites for working sessions and valedictory sessions. Shall I call Kirtika Lotni now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I now invite Miss Kirtika Lotni, co-convener Gandhi Study Circle, Kalindi College, to give vote of thanks.
Hi. Thank you so much for inviting me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the International Conference on Revisiting Gandhian Perspectives on Development, Reflections on Culture, Society and Politics, organized in collaboration with Indian Council for Cultural Relations. As the world grapples with the pandemic, issues of development, sustainability, equity, and justice present a new challenge to countries around the world. At such a time, the Gandhian model for inclusive development can be an effective way to mitigate post-COVID concerns. The session deliberated upon the same with the help of experts and erudite scholars from around the world. On behalf of Gandhi Study Circle of Kalindi College, I would like to extend gratitude to our participants in today's August gathering. We have received over 300 registrations for the same. As a co-convener, it is my privilege to offer a vote of thanks on this occasion. This was indeed a riveting session full of zeal and hope. I would like to express my gratitude to all the esteemed delegates of the conference for their valuable time and contribution. I would like to thank our special guest, Dr. Sobhana Radhakrishna, Chief Functionary, Gandhian Forum for Ethical Corporate Governance. Thank you so much, ma'am, for introducing us to the philosophies that impacted Gandhi's life. It is indeed via a route of Sarvodaya, Swaraj, and Satyagraha, as you pointed out, that the Gandhian vision of peace and equality can be achieved. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Douglas Allen, Professor Emeritus of Philosophy, University of Maine, USA, for the wonderful keynote address, sir. It reflected upon the theme of the session so well, the need for re-examination, rereading, and reapplication of Gandhian perspectives in a self-critical way is an idea that we could all benefit from. I must also thank Professor Annapurna Pandey, Department of Anthropology, University of California, USA, our chair for today's event. Thank you, ma'am, for giving us a very comprehensive idea of who Gandhi, the man, was, what his struggles were, and why he is relevant even now. Thank you so much, Ms. MASAKO, for the soulful performance. It was indeed a rhythmic conference of cultures. The response in the chat box was overwhelming, full of praise, and it was well-deserved. I extend my gratitude to Professor Naina Hasija, Principal, Kalindi College, for giving us an opportunity to organize this event. Unfortunately, our chairperson, Professor Lillian Tibetemba, Honorable Judge, Supreme Court of Uganda, and a guest of honor, Shri Dinesh Patnaik, Director General, ICCR, New Delhi. They couldn't join us today. Hopefully they'll join us in the working sessions and the valedictory session. But I'd like to thank them too for giving their time here, considering to join us. thank you, Dr. Sangita Dhal, Convenor Gandhi Study Circle, and the entire organizing team and student volunteers for working hard to put together a successful session. Thanks a lot, Ms. Manila Narzari, for hosting it so well. The theme for tomorrow's working session is Reimagining Development, a framework for building local self-reliance. All the participants are cordially invited to attend it tomorrow at 9:30. Thank you, everyone.
Before we end, I would request Professor Ahmed, I would, to say a few words because he's watched, he was there in the inaugural session. Sir, if you could kindly say a few words. Professor Nizam Ahmed. Sir, please unmute yourself, sir. Sir, please unmute. Wait, I'll just, Mamta.
Yes, ma'am.
Please unmute Professor Nizam Ahmed. Is it okay?
I think that just send him message, ask to unmute. Not able to unmute him.
So I think you have to unmute you. I think we've lost the connection.
Yeah, connection.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we will wind up here. And thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining this inaugural program. Thank you so much.
And we look forward to your participation tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Allen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you,
please join
sir.
us.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.